G'day, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Changemakers 6, I believe we're actually up to. Today, we are going to be talking with Annette Mayne from the Reconnect group. And for anybody that took the time to read the little, write up, I'm really excited about what these guys are doing. I think it's probably something that some people underestimate the significance of. But for anybody who doesn't know the Reconnect group, they essentially provide mobiles and tablets to people in need, whether that's homeless people, refugees, or other people that just can't afford to have a tablet or a phone. And I think the youth would certainly understand, but even probably older people would get it that nowadays we've become so reliant on our devices. That's probably, not always a good thing, but it is the state of play. And if you don't have something that can help you to navigate your way around and to be in contact with people, to make emergency calls, find your way to a job interview, etc., it really is quite debilitating. And I'm sure we'll get into more of the details of that with Annette. But yeah, look, I just it excited me when I read about what they were doing, because the people who know what my broader mission is with Flicks for Good, in terms of providing world-class entertainment and education to the world for free, is that someone who is in an underprivileged situation, or they might be in another country, they could get their hands on a phone and they could get access to the internet, and then they could learn and they could get upskilled, and they could have an opportunity to figure out ways to change their circumstances. So, I'm constantly on my phone listening to podcasts, audiobooks, watching things on YouTube, things like this, connecting with communities around the world. So it's it's become really, really important. Well, that's enough of me yammering on there. Let's get Annette in, and we can actually hear the story from her. Hi, Annette.
Hey, Brad.
How are you?
I'm pretty good today, actually. Yeah. How are you?
And I've just realised I didn't have my headphones in myself after saying, hey, look, make sure
Is
you
that
have
better?
headphones. That's definitely better. Yes, I believe everybody else would be able to hear you fine, so that's okay. I can see
Awesome.
that we've got someone with us live. Oh, g'day, Blake, Chef Blake. Good afternoon. He's saying, oh yeah, I think that he maybe is having a little jab at the fact I was a fraction late. Hey, look, hey, 12 p.m. is one of those funny times of the day. Yeah, yeah. So, but thanks for joining us, Blake. Appreciate you being here. So, Annette, for people who don't know you and don't know the Reconnect group, can you please give us a bit of a rundown on who you are and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, sure. I've been working in waste and recycling programs for the last 17 years um, on a range of different initiatives. I've worked with councils and small businesses and charities, all finding ways to reuse, reduce, and ultimately recycle, any way to avoid things from going to landfill. Um, my background is actually in PR and communications and community education. So I don't actually have the technical skills for things like mobile phone repairs, but I'm aware of the processes and how that all comes about. I think for me that my passion is about my passion is waste. I could talk garbage all day if you really wanted me to. It's I just can't handle the idea of things being wasted, and landfill to me is a really dirty word. So I find ways in which we can make a change with that. And e-waste, in particular electronic waste, is the fastest growing contributor to landfill in Australia. And that's just an astonishing figure. But that's the rise of how much electronic equipment and gadgets and things that we have, and the speed at which we're turning over them and buying a new one when a new model comes out or something's
Yeah.
updated. So that's what has led me down the path of the Reconnect Project. I was doing some work with an organisation that imports the spare parts for mobile phone repair, and I was helping develop some training programs to actually teach people how to repair mobile phones and tablets. And for that to work, I needed a supply of essentially broken phones and tablets that through the repair course people would learn how to fix. And then I thought, well, at the end, I've got these fixed phones and devices. So why don't I find a way of actually getting them into the hands of people that don't need getting them out of the hands of people that don't need them and into the hands of people that do need them? And hence the Reconnect Project was born. And
What
it's only
sort of
been
year was
operating
this?
for.
Sorry to jump in, but what kind of year were you at?
Well, so I was just about to say, we're only just celebrating
Okay.
our 1 year anniversary.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So I launched in September last year with support from City of Parramatta Council here in Sydney
Great.
at a Pitch for Good event in Parramatta, which then led into a crowdfunding campaign which got the first hit of money, about $5,500, and that then went to getting the first 50 phones and devices repaired, because on average for the whole process it costs us around $100 to bring a device back to life, essentially. So that's that's essentially how it all came about.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, so you've been on this sort of journey, I guess, or war against waste for a while now, or it sounds like probably throughout the course of your life. I mean, at what point did you, I guess, start to really think about that side of things? Is it something that you cared about, as a child, or is there something more that's was there a catalyst moment, I guess, that made you really start thinking more deeply about, the state of play with waste and what's going on in the world?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in a family of fixers and menders. My father is a carpenter and a builder. My mother's a primary school teacher and a dressmaker. And so I grew up in an environment where everything was repaired or made from scratch. My grandfather was also always on his shed, and so my father's garage is like that archetypical old man's shed, full of bits and pieces and screws and bolts and all kinds of equipment and things. And when I was a teenager, he taught me how to restore furniture. In the school holidays, I used to do little bits of work for him, painting timber frames on windows for jobs he was working on. And when I was about 14, he taught me how to restore a beautiful set of cedar Australian timber drawers, a tall boy that had been kicked around from farm to farm, and the drawers had been nailed in every time they moved. And that first stroke of the oil going on to the timber, once we'd stripped back all the paint and 60 years of grime and whatever, and the colour came out of this timber, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very much the environment in which I grew up.
Yeah.
But there was also a couple of I guess key inputs that really set me on this path. One of them was I grew up watching The Good Life, the British sitcom about the couple that want to try and become sustainable and off-grid within central London. And I think that had quite a lasting impact on me. But also when I finished my communications degree, and I was working for a multinational beauty company, actually. And essentially it was my job to promote expensive soap and body lotion and toiletry products. And I just got to a point where I had a crisis of conscience, where I just couldn't do it anymore. One day I was looking at this box of fancy soap, and I thought, this piece of soap is wrapped in special waxed paper. It's in its own little cardboard box. Then it's packed into a set of 3 as a gift pack. And then 6 of those are packed into a cardboard box. And then another 6 of those are packed into a bigger box. And that's how they're getting shipped out to the stores and things. I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. So
Yeah.
I was living in London at the time,
It's
and
funny you say that because I think that they, yeah, when I first went to the UK and my sister was living over there, this was maybe 10 years ago. I don't know. Forgive
yeah,
me, Narelle, if you're watching this. I've probably got your whole, how long you've been married completely wrong. But, it was quite some time ago, let's just say that. And, yeah, I just remember going and buying like something maybe equivalent to Tim Tams, like just some, I think it was a packet of some sort of
yeah,
biscuits or something. And it was like you said, there was like a cardboard box, and then inside the cardboard box there was kind of like a plasticky layer like what we have. And then inside that, all the individual biscuits were all wrapped in their own little
yeah.
plastic layer. So I was just like, oh my goodness, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's crazy. And so I just had this crisis of conscience, and I thought I can't keep flogging expensive soap to people that don't really need it. That's packaged, over packaged to the
Mm,
extent that there's so much waste in it.
yeah.
And so I convinced a small environmental charity in London to take me on, and essentially took 4 steps backwards in my career and pay grades to start working on uh, a recycling program within London. And the first thing they asked me to do was work with supermarkets on shelf signage to try and encourage people to buy items that were in recyclable packaging. Because at
Mm,
that point in time, London didn't really have curbside recycling systems like we do in
right.
Australia. And from that, I'd found my tribe. I'd found my people. I was where I wanted to be, and I just took off from there. So back in a you know that was, gosh, 2002 to 2005. Um, and then back here in Australia, I continued working on some recycling programs, and have worked with a social enterprise and charity in Sydney called the Bower Reuse and Repair Centre, which is a
Okay.
fabulous initiative that stops things from going to landfill.
Yeah.
And within that, I started to see the rise in electronic waste, and was, yeah, given this opportunity to work on mobile phone repairs, and yeah, here it all is.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I always feel myself kind of torn in these situations because I've got this on my Twitter profile. Yeah, I'm kind of part tech junkie because
Hmm.
I've always been kind of drawn to new interesting things that are happening in technology, and I blame my dad for that because he was really into computers. So we had like the Apple IIe back in the day, and then sort of growing up from there, and because he was a primary school principal, so he put a lot of technology into schools, which there's great parts of technology, and I mean, look at us right here right now.
Yeah.
We're live streaming a broadcast across multiple channels, and we can we can chat to people. Blake's saying, what's he saying? I actually sent Daryl an angry email because they started individually wrapping their chocolate licorice logs. How much packaging do you
Uh,
need? Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, this is exactly right. There's it's. I mean, one thing I think it's kind of good at my daughter's school. They have a setup there where I don't know. This might be universal, but um, everything you put in the lunchbox has to just go in there like
mhm.
without any wrapping. So you have to have like containers and stuff like that. Um, yes. So on the one side, technology lets you do great things, and but then on the other side, yeah. I'm guilty too. Like I probably don't see out a full term on a mobile phone contract, because I like to have something new, and the iPhone 11 or whatever we're up to now has some great cameras, and I'm interested in filmmaking. So that's great. But then like I literally, I believe, oh, where are they? I don't know because my daughter's been on my case. Well, there's one. So there's one unused like older phone, and I know I've got a couple in the drawer that have got broken screens because my
Yeah.
daughter wants me to convert one into like a little gaming sort of thing, and
Yeah.
I just don't know. I haven't taken the time to read up about how I can strip away any of the ways that it could possibly be used to connect to the outside world because she's only 9 and I don't really want to
Yes.
communicate into the internet. But
Yeah.
and she doesn't get that. She just thinks that I'm lazy, and why don't you do it? And I'm just anyway. So So the repair. So you're saying it's about $100 to repair the average phone. Is that right?
Well, look, that's across a whole spectrum of things. So I just thought I'd show you. I'm still using an
Mm.
iPhone 5, 5C,
Right. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That might be the
and
one I
it's
was just
working.
holding. You know.
It's working just fine for me. And a lot of people laugh at me
Yeah.
because I am now working on mobile technology, and they're like, "Why don't you upgrade?" I said, "Well, it still serves me just fine. It does what I need to do." But on the point of the average cost of repairing a phone. So here's some that have been donated for the
Mm.
Reconnect project.
Mm-hmm.
This one absolutely didn't need anything done to it at all.
Awesome.
It's an iPhone 6,
Yep.
and my technicians wiped it and tested it all, and it's perfectly fine, ready to go. This one, however, have a look at that one.
Yes.
You can see it's actually even bent
Oh
at the
my
top.
goodness. Yes.
It's
It's
I
seen
think
better days. That's for
it's
sure. That
literally
one.
been run over by a truck. It literally has. This is I think it's a Samsung S6, and so something like that. Hopefully the logic board, the memory board right inside is still going to be fine. Because if it
Mm.
is, then we can bring this back to life.
Wow.
If we get donated phones that the logic board isn't okay, well, then we can harvest the other parts for it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
this is where the right to repair devices very much comes into play, and has
Mm.
been a big issue with Apple in the US, and there's been some lawsuits filed
Oh wow. Okay.
around them not allowing devices um, to have the iOS updates come
Mm.
through, and so it's essentially planned obsolescence, which is a term that's been around for a long time, but Apple was enforcing it, making it happen, so these devices, even though they still worked, would no longer be able to be updated, and that was it. And they
Yeah.
also weren't making it available for individuals to be able to repair their own devices. And repairing a mobile phone isn't for the faint-hearted. It,
Mm.
it, it very delicate. You have to be very delicate. You're using tiny tools and tiny screws that are like 1 and 2 millimeters in length. This is
Wow.
pretty microscopic stuff.
Mm.
But
Mm.
so yes, on average, $100 for us to get the parts. So we work with a wholesaler to obtain the spare parts, or
Mm.
we frankenphone, make up
Frankenphone. I
that's
love
my
that.
term.
Ah, that's a great one.
To get broken bits from a number of different phones and put them all together to build one working phone. So it really goes to show that people don't realize that they are still actually a viable working device. And I know that some people sign up for mobile phone contracts where at the end of it you'll own the phone, and then the contract rolls over and you just get given the new one. But I haven't done that. I purchased my iPhone 5C outright, and I'm still using it and going fine with it.
Mm.
But you will find that most people do have a couple of phones in a drawer or a box or stuff in the garage somewhere. I mean, I think the information from Mobile Muster, which is the national recycling scheme for mobile phones, estimated that there was 23 million unused phones a few years ago sitting around in Australia in drawers and cupboards and things. And that's
Mm.
23
How many?
million phones that,
23
yeah,
million.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That was their estimation based on the turnover of phone sales and
Yeah.
number of phone sales in Australia. And that's a
Yeah.
phenomenal amount. Yeah,
It
that's just
is.
phones. So add
Yeah.
tablets to it,
Yeah.
iPads and Android tablets, and add laptops to it,
Mm.
and you start thinking, gosh, there's a phenomenal amount of resources out there that are actually still able to be used,
Yeah.
and with just a little bit of love,
Yeah.
can be fixed up and ready for someone to use. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, um, yeah, well, I guess this is where that other side of me, which is the hippie side, because I was saying before, I'm kind of part tech junkie, part
yeah,
hippie. The other side is like, I was fortunate enough to grow up in the country in New South Wales in little towns, and then I lived it Bellingen, which is near Coffs Harbour, which is like one of the original hippie destinations,
Yep.
like where like lots of the people went to, and so there's lots of people there who are obviously really into all sorts of things, sustainable living and what have you, and
Mhm.
that's going back. I mean, show my age, but it's over 20 years ago. That I that I finished high school and went out adventuring around and left there. But I do, and I love the planet. I love the world. I love the people in the
Mhm.
world, and that's part of why I'm interested in doing this. I want to meet more people like yourself, and hopefully find other people, who are also interested in change
Yeah.
and wanting to do something good. And I've been really just pleased that I have been able to find those people here and overseas, and even just the group that I jumped onto last night. I hadn't been part of that group. I joined, and then I posted, and then there was 10 or more different people who've all sort of jumped up. So that's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to spending a bit more time there. And what was the name of that group, by the way?
Social enterprises
Just Social
within Australia,
Enterprises. Social
the
Enterprises
Facebook group.
Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, because some people don't even know what a social enterprise is. In fact, my accountant, because I went and I said, okay, like, Flicks for Good, which is my kind of venture that
Yeah.
I'm working on, this video streaming service. They didn't know what it was, and because I did explain to them, like, it's kind of doesn't have its own official
No.
legal designation for whatever reason, but you can attach it to a not-for-profit, or you can attach it to a for-profit. But
Mhm.
essentially, for anybody who doesn't know what a social enterprise is, a social enterprise is basically a business, or some people call it profit for purpose.
Mhm.
There's a business that has to at least give 50% of the money the profit that they make, sorry, not the money they make, 50% of the profit that they make to different the causes that they believe in,
Yeah.
and then they can do other, different things. In the US, there's the B Corp. I think some companies in Australia perhaps have got the B Corp certification.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a set of rules that you basically adhere to, and then they kind of monitor it and then give you a stamp of approval. And so then, as more people get aware, it is good. I think Ben and Jerry's, they're probably one of the bigger ones. Patagonia, they're a B Corp. Australia has Thank You Water. They're probably the most famous one
And
here.
who gives a crap?
Who gives a crap? Yeah, see, I love it. Like, often people I think have a good sense of humour. Um, so tell me more about, I guess, your involvement within the social enterprise space. Have you had much to do with any other, or had the opportunity to meet with any other founders?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working within social enterprises in Australia since 2015.
Mm,
Um, I was the communications manager for the Bower here in Sydney, and the Bower is quite a well-known social enterprise in Sydney. It was
yeah.
featured on the War on Waste because the Bower brought the concept of repair cafes to Australia back in 2014, and that's a community initiative where people come and get advice or assistance on repairing items with people who volunteer their time. So there's repair cafes popping up all over Australia, but our repair cafe at the Bower in Sydney was featured on the ABC doco series War on Waste with Craig Castle a couple of years ago. So I spent a lot of my time at the Bower. I set up a program called From House to Home, which then went on to win the community building community building program award at the New South Wales Office of Environment Awards in 2016, and was
Congratulations.
then, thank you, but it was then selected also to win the overall Premier's Award for Environment that year. And
Mm,
and it's the same principle as to what I'm now doing with the Reconnect project. And House to Home was an initiative where I'd been um, helping some friends who were involved in the Mums for Refugees advocacy group. and I'd been helping them drive around on hard rubbish days, collecting furniture and things that they could provide to families who were being released from detention in Villawood and being put into community housing but had no way of accessing furniture and things. So I was helping them, and I thought to myself, this is nuts. I'm working for an organisation that has access to a truck, that has agreements with 21 councils to pick up furniture. We have these systems in place. All we need to be able to do is cover the costs of making it happen. And hence House to Home was born, and that program has expanded now to also support victims of domestic violence and homeless people that have been homeless and are transitioning into social housing or supported accommodation. And that works on the same principle. The Bower is donated masses of furniture, things that people don't need anymore. They work with caseworkers in different organisations to get that furniture then out to people. And those people get the dignity of choosing those furniture items. And that to me is a really important part when it comes to a social enterprise. Is there may be a primary objective for the social enterprise, but there's often subsidiary or side objectives as well. And for me, environmental work has been my driver, but I have a very strong sense of social justice, and I always have. I was the person who would chase the bullies down the street because they were throwing rocks at my neighbour, and I just can't handle seeing the injustices like that. So my mother said, yeah, I was always that way inclined. The kid I remember in kindergarten, and they said to us, oh, Christmas time, you bring a toy in for a child that doesn't have one, program. And I literally thought that you chose one of your own toys and you gave that to the school to give to another child. And my mum found me in my bedroom crying because I had a number of stuffed toys out in front of me, and I couldn't decide which one to choose to give away. But I really wanted to give one because the idea of there being a child that wasn't going to receive something at Christmas was quite upsetting. And my mum explained to me, oh, no, it's okay, we'll actually go and we'll get one from the shop, or we'll make something, or we'll do it that way. And so this strong sense of the haves and the have-nots, and the divide in wealth around the world. I mean, that's a whole topic that we could go on for hours, but that's, I guess, the secondary driver for me is, well, one, I don't want to see stuff going to waste unnecessarily. Yeah. There's enough resources for us to continue reusing things. And two, why can't we help people that genuinely need help? I mean, for a refugee that arrives, and at the moment there's some legislation or things being put forward to stop refugees in detention having access to mobile phones, which I think is incredibly cruel, because how else are you supposed to contact family or friends? How else are you supposed to have a connection still to the world? And that, again, that's just it for me. A mobile phone, and you said in your intro, a very excellent intro, a mobile phone is imperative now. If you want to apply for a job, a mobile phone can be used to keep in contact with Centrelink and essential services. A mobile phone is like a mini computer in your pocket. It can contain, a whole load of information and packages and programs and apps and things that mean that you don't necessarily need to have a full computer. So for someone who has been settled into Australia, has been released from detention, is put into community environment, what's the first thing you'd want to do if you were in that situation? Well, surely you'd want to contact your family and say, I'm safe, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And have a means of communicating with them.
Yeah.
And whilst we might love it, we might hate it, but they're here to stay. And mobile technology is just developing at such a fast rate. And whilst we keep adopting new technologies, which again, credit to what we're being able to do here today, it just leaves the trail it leaves behind. There's an opportunity there. So the first mobile phone that the Reconnect Project gave to someone was a refugee who's in community detention up around up around the Hornsby area
Yeah.
and in Sydney. That was the first one. And then the next 20 phones went to the women's community shelters. So with the rise of COVID and people seeing the increase in domestic violence and calls for help,
Mm.
if you're someone, fleeing a situation of family violence, you need a device or a way of communicating with people that isn't being tracked or
Yeah.
traced by
Mm.
the abuser. Um,
Mm.
and often when people flee those situations, they're walking out with nothing and
Mm.
can't be sure if their phone is actually safe to use. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Traumatizing, really, isn't it? I mean, my wife and I were watching. We were watching a program a little while ago that I feel bad now because I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Blake might know; he's pretty good with that sort of thing. But it was, I'm sure it was probably an ABC thing, and it was just basically going into maybe it was like riches to rags or something
Oh,
where
the homelessness one on SBS.
yeah, homelessness, yeah, and
It's
then they had the
where they take people and they put them into living life as a homeless person for
yeah,
a
different
week or two
situations,
weeks.
like whether
Yeah.
it was on the street or whether it
Yep.
was in
Boarding
a
house.
boarding house, which
Hmm.
is still like terrifying. The boarding house
Hmm.
was probably scarier. And now since I've tuned into that, I've heard somebody else telling a story about going to one of those boarding houses. Actually, no, it was Simon Fennick, who I interviewed. So I was originally running this show on Instagram Live, and I've just recently transitioned to doing YouTube and
Hmm.
Facebook. But uh, he, he basically got caught up in crime. Or he basically ended up turning to an ice addict and got caught up in crime and became a dealer and like just the whole story of going right down the drain and then end up in
Yeah.
jail. But then when he came out of jail, he said he'd done it at a boarding house, and the person who was running the joint was off her face on something, and
Mm.
basically the all the pointing to rooms down the thing, and it's like there's doors hanging out of the wall, and just you think, wow. But I remember we would watch that, and one of the scariest things in that was probably there was a mum and a couple of kids who they were actually in a house, but I think the house was they were going to have to leave the house. They were only able to be there for a while, but they had fled a domestic violence situation,
Mm.
and they were on the cusp of potentially ending up out on the street. And you think, well, that's just like it can't be that
Yeah.
way, like, or the fact it is that way, but like it shouldn't be, because it's
Yeah.
bad enough if someone's trying to get out of such a horrible situation, let alone to think that they might be doing so to um, not know what's going to become of themselves. So that's a terrifying sort
Mm.
of scenario, or just a really
Yeah. So within that divide between the have and the have-nots, you know, there's also an increasing digital divide happening in Australia,
mm,
and COVID has really highlighted that as well. That people that and the digital divide talks in relation to a person's ability to connect digitally. So whether they have access to a device and whether they have access to a suitable internet. So the NBN rollout has been working towards reducing the access side of things, but then there's still the being able to have a device. And COVID has really highlighted that to people, because all of a sudden you had people trying to do schooling from home, and a number of kids, in
mm,
families that just don't have the means to be able to buy a tablet or a
mm,
laptop,
mm,
for their kids to use.
yeah,
And at school it's provided, but in the home setting, not necessarily.
yeah,
So, in a backwards kind of way, COVID has shown how the importance of programs like the Reconnect Project have in our society to be able to, keep people connected, particularly at times when we're being forced to isolate
mm,
from other people, and then
mm,
that leads into a whole range of mental health issues around isolation. And then at the end of
mm,
that, when we're all coming back into society again, how's that all going to play out for people. So the online space and having the ability to access that is really important now. And certainly you're looking at situations, between Queensland and New South Wales where people aren't able to physically visit each other because of the border closure. Or if we didn't have, FaceTime apps and things, then how else would people be able to visually see? You can still pick up the phone. But now in some areas, landlines are on the decline. There needs to be suitable mobile coverage around Australia too. So there's a whole range of issues that can come into, understanding that divide digitally in Australia and how we can help with that. So I've had a number of businesses that have come together and done a little donation drive within their organisation. And people have gone through the drawers and the cupboards at home and brought in their spare laptops and tablets and phones, and these organisations have boxed them all up and sent them to us, and that's fabulous. I mean, that kind of support, the support actually I've received has been wonderful. People are really really positive, really encouraging about the Reconnect project. The questions that I get asked is, but what about my data? What's going to happen to that? And we use military grade software, specialist software that erases everything. We're not interested, not interested in accessing what people have got on their phone. So even if the phone is as beat up and broken as that one, it's still possible for us to repair it, completely wipe all the data, reset it, and then it's good to go. And I think that's the key distinction between reusing mobile phones and tablets to reusing laptops as well, because mobile phones and tablets all come with built-in software. So it's either the iOS or it's the Android operating system. Whereas laptops, once we completely erase that, well, then we need to be able to reinstall Windows or Apple operating systems onto Macs and things, and that comes at a cost to us. So hence why, we say around, again, back to that $100. It also covers the cost of providing a charger with the phone and things. But, data security is really important, and we're not interested in what's actually on people's phones or tablets or laptops. We're just interested in
probably don't want to see who knows
who
knows
who knows what you've got on there. I don't want to see your photos from your holidays or whatever. It's just it's not of interest to me. And so far, I'm doing some programs at the moment supported by City of Sydney Council, and that's working with the YWCA in Sydney, the Women and Girls Emergency Centre in Redfern, and Counterpoint Community and Multicultural Services in Waterloo. And that's a 6-month program to provide up to 300 devices to people in the inner Sydney, quite low socioeconomic areas around Waterloo and Redfern and Alexandria. So we're getting laptops for girls who are participating in a mentorship program through the Women and Girls Emergency Centre, phones for people who are experiencing are in transitional housing and have no other way of being in contact with people, and devices to elderly isolated people within the social housing tenements in Waterloo, big housing estates in there. So that's a fantastic initiative, and so we need people to be donating their devices so that we can work with those organisations to get them out. And also, I've got a similar one happening in the Parramatta region in Western Sydney, supported by Parramatta Council, and that's working with Parramatta Mission and the Parramatta Women's Shelter to again get devices out to people who need them.
Awesome.
So I'm working with. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you or get a device to you. So for people who are watching this, whether it's now or whether it's into the future, because most of the viewers that I have typically watch this at a later time, which is understandable because lots of people are at work or in bed or whatever it is, depending where they are in the world. I mean, people overseas. I'm assuming at the moment your focus is in Australia.
Yeah.
But so how do people get it to you? Like, what's the website? So I might pop that up on the screen.
Yeah, if you pop the website up and people can go to that, there's a page on there that says Connect, and that has or Donate, and that has all the information about where you can physically drop off devices at the moment here in Sydney, or how you can post them to us, or we have a reply paid that people can use to package up and send things to us. So we're getting devices from all across Australia. People are finding out about us, and where possible, if I've got someone interested in running a donation drive themselves in a local community or in a specific region, what I'm trying to do is then also find organisations in that general district that can benefit from receiving those devices once we've cleaned them up and refurbished them. So trying to keep things local to a degree and keep communities supporting their own community. So if anyone wants to run a donation drive where they are the central point collecting all the devices, then please feel free to get in touch. Oh great, you've got there on the screen the donation drop-off points, and we're looking for more donation drop-off points as well. We tend to work with organisations that can have something behind the counter, maybe just to make sure people who might be concerned about dropping off a phone or a tablet somewhere have that security, knowing that device is actually going to the end purpose that it's meant to be. So, and whatever condition they're in, whatever age, we'll take them. So
hold up the other because I've noticed we've got a couple other people. So hold up that beat up phone again, so people can see just how bad it is. Because I guess
there we go.
Have a look at that thing. So I mean,
that's an extreme example. That is extreme.
Oh, hang on, sorry, put it back up. I'll put you back onto the full screen. There you go. So now people can see better. Yeah, that one's been run over. So,
but that iPhone came to us in excellent condition. So we'll take them regardless. Any Android or iPhone, it really doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter the age of it. If it's something that we can't refurbish and reuse, then we will have it recycled. So there is a national mobile phone recycling scheme called Mobile Muster, and but none of the phones actually get reused through that program. But they securely destroy all of it, and then there's actually quite a lot of rare metals and valuable components within a mobile phone that they can then extract, and that then gets reused. So, and there on the screen you've got Gokhan. Gokhan's the tech that works for me, and he's done some specialist training in micro soldering skills, which is soldering 1 millimeter size little microchips and things onto the logic boards within a mobile phone. So hands as steady as a surgeon. He has.
Amazing, yeah. It's going to put people like me and my soldering skills to shame. That's for sure. I tried to solder something recently. It was a disaster. I was like, okay. I jumped on YouTube and I thought I broke the jack on my on some headphones. So I thought, I'll just get this other one from these headphones that don't work, and the jack piece is fine, and I'll just get that across. And I don't know what I did. I thought it was going to be pretty straightforward, but no, they're not working. So 1 millimeter. Wow, it's amazing. So good. I just think it's such a great. Thing. Are there any while I've got the website here? Anything else here that you think would be good to show people?
I think the main thing is that we're actively looking for project partners, I suppose. So
Mm.
on the page that says who we can help, or who we help, is actually very little information. That one's a work in progress, and that's where we'll
Yeah.
be updating with the different organisations that we're supporting and working with. And eventually there will be a section on there too where people can actually purchase a refurbished device from us. So that then provides us with that money towards repairing the phones that can can be then given to people in need. So
Mm.
it's an ethical way or a socially conscious way of getting
Mm.
a device too. You know, even if it's for your kids once they
Mm.
hit high school or whatever, or you're looking for
Mm-hmm.
something quick, then we'll be offering that too, so that again, it as a social enterprise, it's providing us with an income to be able to do the actual social component that we're wanting to do, which is to, you know, get devices into the hands of people that need them, that
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't be able to access them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what, if you don't mind me asking, because I think it's good for people to understand, and part of the reason I'm running these different series I'm running is that I want. I suppose one thing I really like the process of sparking ideas, and I see how stuff happens in my own mind, and you see one thing here and then you think, oh, that could be used over here. And I think a lot of the great things that we've seen coming out in recent times have often been they've transplanted some sort of system or a model from one area and just plunked it over into another area. um, so but I also like, I suppose, people to be educated from the ground up so that they can sort of go, okay, well, how would I even start? Because I think
Mm.
sometimes, and I don't know the stats, there'll be some statistician out there, and if anybody watching knows, and put it in the comments, like, in the future when you're watching this later on, if somebody knows the stats, but uh, I think a lot of people who are probably a bit more socially conscious, if you want to call it that, or lean towards doing something in social enterprise, not for profit, what have you, don't always have a bucket load of cash themselves. So yeah, you might have a big heart, but you don't have a big
Yeah.
bank balance. So how? I guess it sounds like you've had a bit of grant money come in. Like, how have
Yeah.
you guys, I guess, functioned from that regard so far?
Yeah, so I guess when starting up a social enterprise, you need to make sure that you've got enough seed funding to get you up and running. And then that you actually, a social enterprise is different to a charity that is solely reliant on donations. Social enterprise is actively selling goods or a service in order to derive an income that then supports the social aims of that organisation. So you have to not think like a charity, and you have to think like a business. And I think that's where starting out a lot of small charity social enterprise groups struggle, because they don't have a marketable product or service to be able to give to someone. I'm on the board of a local food rescue organisation in my area called the Crateful Group, and it very much is, it's been operating kind of like under the radar for the last 7 years, and we've only in the last, excuse me, 2 years become a registered entity and are registered with the Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission and can receive monetary donations.
Mm,
But for us, we don't look to achieve um, uh, derive an income or for
mm-hmm,
ourselves. It's
mm,
100% volunteer run, so there's a very low
okay,
cost base to run the
mm,
operation. All the food that comes in is rescued from supermarkets. We ask for a $3 contribution for the hampers that we give out, which are, fruit boxes filled with fresh produce and perishable goods. And
mm,
then that money then covers insurance, petrol costs, you know, business registration fees every year, just the basic things that we need to be able to cover.
yeah,
But we're not looking to increase that, our offering, to become like a business of such. Our purpose is take food that's being otherwise going to be discarded, get it to people who could do with a helping hand, and not charge a huge amount for it, just enough to cover our costs. So for $3, someone's getting a massive box of fruit and veg. I think that's the difference between that and then starting something like, example, the Reconnect Project, which is going to have some pretty expensive overheads in regards to if we need to be purchasing spare parts and paying for people's time. So at the moment, I don't derive a wage from
Yeah.
the Reconnect project.
So sorry,
I,
just before we push on there, because I just is that the right spelling for the Grateful group? If people are wanting to
yeah,
find out,
yep,
Grateful. Okay, all
yep,
right, and then
yep. That's a local
we'll
Southern Sydney-based food rescue group that
awesome. All right, we'll
I'm
wipe
involved
that
with.
off, and then I'll put this one back so people know who we're talking to. Yes. Now, please
Yeah.
continue.
So I don't derive an income
Yep.
from the Reconnect project
Yep.
because it's very much a startup at this point
Yeah.
in time. And, in the future, it would be great if I could concentrate on it 100% of the time and it
Yeah.
did provide me with an income. So it's a secondary, it's a passion project, I guess, for me at the
Yeah.
moment. And the funding that I do have received goes towards paying for the technician's time, paying
Yeah.
for the spare parts, and again, paying for insurance and
Yeah.
basic overheads. Very
Yeah.
fortunate that we've got space to operate that is provided to us for free through the Bauer Reuse and Repair Centre in Zetland.
Okay.
That's in
Great.
their electrical um, repairs workshop.
Yeah.
And then office space is provided through the mobile phone spare part wholesaler that we get our spare parts from. So I think when you're starting out, you need to look for like-minded organisations that you could or organisations that you have some kind of a synergy with, that you can then link onto and be able to have them supporting you as you're getting going. But a social enterprise very much needs to think like a business. It needs to operate as a business. It has to have a viable funding model to make it sustainable, because once you're established and, for example, once we've got caseworkers now relying on us to be providing devices for their clients, then we can't just suddenly drop off when the funding ceases. So the grant funding that I've had gives us a startup capital, essentially, and some startup capital that I put into the organisation as well, and that gets us going. And whilst we pilot programs like what we're doing with City of Sydney and City of Parramatta, refine our model, and then build our actual income generating aspect of the business, which will be sale of refurbished devices and hopefully repair of devices. I mean, the long-term plan, if I was to have one, if I had a vision, wouldn't it be great if you could go into a shopping centre and get your phone repaired by the Reconnect project, knowing that the money you're spending on having your phone repaired is going into the social aim of the Reconnect project. So, I mean, my vision is to have some repair facilities operating where we can provide that service to people, and then also to offer training and to help people to be able to become skilled in a different way. So seeing a transition of people that maybe have been long-term unemployed or need some way to reskill in order to become employed. So with training, then, and for the Reconnect project is able to provide that for people as well, then that's also potentially an income stream that we can generate too. So that's my big plan for world domination in mobile phone repairs.
Why not? Why not? I'm all about it. Like, I mean, I'm just world domination in a good way. I think is what we really need. And I think touching on some really valuable points there is this whole element of, I guess, finding like-minded people or groups that can sort of, I guess, see your vision and have a similar sort of vision. Because even within this short time frame of finding out about you guys, I was thinking, well, my big, hairy, audacious goal, with Flicks for Good, is to create a video streaming service that we can provide to the world for free, supported by ads, so there'll be ad revenue and people could also donate money. But and one of the main reasons I want to do that is not just so that everyone can have free entertainment. It's really more so that someone who is underprivileged or perhaps is in a slum or something like that could actually get a device, and then they could watch content but also have some good quality educational material. I'm thinking of curating content from YouTube creators, finding people that, like that they're putting out stuff that's reliable. Because there's so much crazy stuff out there, that is potentially extremely dangerous. My daughter is constantly watching things. She went through this little phase of wanting to become a mermaid, and she was looking up all these like lotions and potions online that just these kids are creating. And so we would come home, and then not we would come home. It's not as if she was in the house by herself.
Yeah, I understand.
But we would be home and not paying attention to her, and then you'd walk into the bathroom and she's got like all these different products she's mixing together. She's got all this stuff all over her legs, and you're just like, what are you? I mean, it's kind of comical though as well, because I was like, okay, so let's say that you do turn into a mermaid, then are you just going to hang out in the bathtub, or
how are you going to get out of the bathroom?
What's going to happen? But she's like, oh no, I watched this Barbie thing, and she at night time or something she could swim, and in the daytime she had legs and she could walk or something. I don't know. But so basically vet the information and put it on this platform, and then someone could have a phone, and then they could get access to learning. And my big dream is that that the content would be translated into their language verbally. So that's the big,
fabulous.
That's the key, I think, to me, is so that way if somebody doesn't speak English, doesn't read or write, they can still learn. They can still get some little ideas about how to better themselves and how to maybe change their position or get inspired that things are possible, and go out there and make an impact in their communities and in their world. So, like I thought, well, I could foresee, like in a dream situation, let's say Flicks for Good takes off and it does well, and we're able to generate money, and awareness that we can use for good causes. A partnership with someone like yourself could end up being something that becomes a reality, where it's like, okay, well, we want to get the device to you, and then we also want to get education to you in video format that you can sort of tap into. So who knows?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to have those goals and to have those dreams and to have that vision, because that when things are feeling like you're coming up against brick wall after brick wall after brick wall, you think, how am I ever going to get this off the ground? You've still got that vision to hold on to, and in that light, thinking like a business, being strategic, drawing up proper business plans and strategic plans that will keep you focused and on track, because it's so easy to get distracted by pretty shiny things, off in a corner somewhere, and losing that original drive. I mean, one of the other things that I'm hoping to do would be able to provide 12 months credit, data and phone credit on the devices that we're giving out. That's not something that the Reconnect Project can afford just to pay for. But if we had a carrier that came on board, and actually, I'm going to name them. My mind's set on Aldi at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
My mind's set on
things.
Aldi because they could be a national collection point for the phones in the first place. They already do battery recycling, so you can drop all your household batteries into Aldi. So they could be a collection point, and if they were backing the data program for the 12 months, they have some really good data packages, phone and data packages. So Aldi.
There you go, Aldi. Anybody who knows
that's my target.
Who knows somebody whose sister's cousin's brother works at Aldi at a senior level, probably not the people packing the shelves, but somebody high up.
That's my goal, because I mean that would just be amazing then, because at the moment we give the phones to the caseworkers, and then the caseworkers are having to find funding, to put credit onto the phone if they're giving it to one of their clients, or the client is then responsible for finding that funding. But if we can provide the whole thing, then that'd be amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. I love everything that you're doing. It's just, I think that it's really empowering. It's, some people at a first glance, without thinking deeply, they might not realise just how important it is But then having said that, you take a mobile phone off someone who's probably 25, they'll just about have a heart attack. So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. It's the
it's a
first thing. It's the first thing we touch of a morning, and it's the
yeah,
last thing we touch before we go to
it's
bed.
exactly what I
You
was
know,
just thinking.
you walk out of the house, got my keys, got my wallet, got my phone. You know,
That's
it
it.
used to just be my keys and my wallet. Now it's keys, wallet,
Mm,
phone. You
mm,
do feel like something's missing when you don't have it,
yeah,
um, which, you know, in some ways we can, you know, think back to the good old days when we didn't have them as kids and
mm,
whatnot. But they, as I said earlier, they're here to stay, and
yeah,
they are a beneficial tool. That, you know,
yes,
they are. So if we
indeed.
can reduce that divide in Australia of people who have access to them and who don't, then that would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so good. Thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on. Don't be a stranger. And like any, please, yeah, feel free to dob in other great organisations. Anybody else watching, I'm always looking for guests. So I'm wanting to try and just keep this thing rolling, and let's all work together. And you know, it's just really exciting to find people who are trying to make things better in the world. So thanks so much, and good on you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Talk soon. Okay,
See ya.
bye. Bye, everybody.